Hey everybody, CW here, Card Wolf, because I'm always on the hunt for great cards. Today, well, this is a video that I guess I've been wanting to do this episode all month, but I kept putting it off, and now here it is, the last week of July, and I'm finally going to sit down and do this one. This episode is it's not a rip, and it's not a mail day, and it's not a battle. It's not really like most of the episodes I do. I haven't done an episode like this one in a little while, but I decided that now was the moment to do another story time episode. This one is about a famous event in baseball history that even many dedicated fans are just not aware of, and it happened almost 60 years ago this month. So I encourage you to sit back and relax with a beverage of your choice, get comfortable, and allow me to recount what is known to many baseball fans and historians as the best pitched game in baseball history. Now, what does that mean, the best pitched game? Does it mean that someone threw a no-hitter or a perfect game? Actually, neither one of those things happened in this game, yet to me and many other people, there's no question that a game from July of 1963 is Major League Baseball's best pitched game ever played. So let's go back then to the evening of July 2nd, 1963. We're in Candlestick Park, the home of the San Francisco Giants. The stadium, unlike today's home field for the Giants, was not set secluded in the city, but it was out south of San Francisco, right on the coast, and the constant breeze coming off of the water made most summer nights there cool and sometimes even chilly. That night, the Giants were taking on one of their toughest opponents in the league, the Milwaukee Braves. Now, I've told you that this was the best pitched game in Major League history, so your main question at this point has to be, well, okay, Card Wolf, who were the pitchers? Well, it doesn't get much better than this. Two future Hall of Famers were going at it that night. You had Warren Spahn pitching for the Braves, left-hander, and Juan Marshall pitching for the Giants, right-hander. Two of the best pitchers in the history of the game going at it that night, and they put on a performance that has never come close to being duplicated. Spahn was coming into the game having won 5 straight, including his previous game where he'd shut out the Dodgers. A year before, he'd no-hit San Francisco, and people were wondering if he could do it again. Juan Marshall, meanwhile, came into the game with 8 straight wins under his belt, and had just no-hit Houston just 2 weeks before. These were two pitchers who had everything working right at this point in the season, and they were going to need it. This was not the Washington Senators versus the Seattle Pilots. This was two of the best teams in baseball, with lineups loaded with Hall of Fame sluggers. On the Giants side, you had the great Orlando Cepeda. You had Willie McCovey. And you also had a guy that you might have heard of named Willie Mays playing in the outfield for the Giants that night. The Braves had a pretty good lineup too, no question about that. They had some Hall of Famers in there as well, including Eddie Matthews over at third base. And another guy you might have heard of named Hank Aaron playing in the outfield. Juan Marshall took his warm-up pitches with great focus from the bullpen mound and talked extensively with catcher Ed Bailey and Willie Mays about how the fielders behind him would be positioned for each batter. Warren Spahn, meanwhile, in his usual fashion, threw warm-up pitches along the sideline, tossing a couple pitches and then joking with fans and other players, throwing a few more and then talking some more. Both pitchers had high kicks that could distract batters, and each one could throw a wide variety of pitches for strikes. The game began while the sun was still glowing over the water, and both pitchers had an easy first few innings, each giving up just 1 hit. Cepeda stole a base in the second inning, which was surprising given that Spahn had one of the best pickoff moves in the history of the game. But it didn't amount to anything, and there was no real action in the game until the fourth, when Juan Marshall let two runners get on board with 2 outs. But Willie Mays one-hopped a fly ball and nailed the lead runner at the plate with a perfect throw to keep it scoreless. Now I know when a lot of people think of Willie Mays out in the field, they think of his great over-the-shoulder catch, which was absolutely one of the greatest catches in baseball history. But if you read reports of people who saw that game, many of them say that his throw after the catch was actually the most amazing thing about that play. Willie Mays really had an arm like no one else. In the 7th inning, Spahn himself hit a sharp line drive off of Marshall that looked like it might clear the fences, but it smacked against the outfield wall, giving him a double. He was left stranded on base, though, and after the inning, Marshall told teammates he was sure that ball was gone after it hit the bat, but the wind had knocked it down. The game was still scoreless in the 9th when Willie McCovey stepped up and smashed a drive towards the right field foul pole. The first base umpire called it foul, but of course all the Giants fans sitting nearby insisted it was fair. Nonetheless, the game remained scoreless and went into the 10th inning, with both starting pitchers staying in the game. Spahn had only given up 5 hits and Marshall just 6. At this point in the game, it was quite dark beyond the stadium and it had gotten rather cold, but neither pitcher showed any sign of letting up. Juan Marshall retired 9 straight batters from the 10th through the 12th, the entire Braves lineup down in order. Warren Spahn gave up only a bunt hit during that time. Al Dark, the Giants manager, reportedly asked Marshall after every inning if he felt okay, if he felt ready to come out, and Marshall refused, pointing at Spahn, still out on the mound each inning. Juan Marshall was 25 years old. Warren Spahn was 42. In the 13th inning, Spahn let a hitter reach first base, but then picked him off with his brilliant move. In the 14th, the Giants loaded the bases as a result of an error, but with 2 outs, Spahn got the Giants catcher to pop out to center. Then, coming back out again in the 15th inning, Warren Spahn retired the side in order. From the 13th to the 15th, Marshall, meanwhile, had allowed only 2 base runners, and he also retired the side in the 15th. Going into the 16th inning, both men had pitched a shutout each to one of the more dangerous teams in the league. The 16th inning started around 12:20 a.m. Juan Marshall pitched the top half of the inning, giving up only a single before sending the Braves back out to the field. Once again, Warren Spahn took the mound, this time for the bottom of the 16th. The lead batter for the Giants was Harvey Keene. On deck was Willie Mays. Reportedly, Juan Marshall called out to Mays, telling him, "Hit one now." Spahn got Harvey Keene to fly out to center, and at that point, Willie Mays stepped up to the plate. Spahn threw him a screwball, which was the same pitch he'd been throwing him all night. But this time, Mays connected hard, his first hit of the game, sending the ball high into left field, where it went over the fence, ending the game with a walk-off solo home run. As the Giants disappeared into their dugout, Warren Spahn, the losing pitcher, stayed patiently out on the field to give a reporter some words. The rest of the Braves team waited quietly for him in the clubhouse. When Spahn joined them, they all stood up and applauded, and they lined up to shake his hand. The game had lasted 4 hours and 10 minutes, 16 innings of shutout ball from both pitchers. Including the home run, Warren Spahn had allowed only 9 hits, Juan Marshall only 8. Each pitcher threw over 200 pitches. The entire time, neither team is reported to have ever sent a single relief pitcher to the bullpen to warm up. This is a performance that I think it is very safe to say will never be repeated. From 1957 through 1963, Warren Spahn led or tied as the National League leader in complete games, with his season totals ranging from 18 to 23 each year. Then in 1964, Juan Marchal took the lead from him, throwing 22 complete games. Just a few years later, in 1968, Juan Marchal threw 30 complete games. The complete game leader for the majors last year for the 2021 season threw 3. One last thought for you. We all know Spahn and Marchal are Hall of Famers and that they had great careers, but consider this. The pitcher who had the most wins in the decade of the 50s is Warren Spahn. The winningest pitcher of the 1960s? Juan Marchal. This card, showing the pitching leaders from that year, 1963, that the best pitch game was played, is the only card to feature Juan Marchal and Warren Spahn together on the same card. It's one of my few graded cards that I own because I love this story so much, and it makes me remember the days when pitchers actually had to play baseball rather than whatever they do now. I hope you enjoyed this story too and haven't fallen asleep. I want to thank you for watching, and as always, happy collecting.